talking about science and faith and what science can do to add to your faith like that, or how faith can add to the way you view science and interpret the data that you do see. You don't see that and go, oh, well, that must have been a great accident, right? Or you look at that and you go, oh, God's behind that. And that's what our faith allows us to be able to do. And so, again, I said this before, but I think it takes much more faith to be an atheist than it does to believe that there is a God. And I believe that the God that you and I worship is the God of the Bible, and that's kind of where we're going to be focusing our attention today. So we all have unanswered questions in life, right? How many of you've got questions that you wish you had the answers to, right? Most of us, in fact, all of us have questions that we don't have the answers to. Some of us will get answers to our questions at some point in our life, but we'll all go to our graves with questions that we never got answered in this life. The worst thing about life is not unanswered questions, though. Because there's things in life, you're going to recognize that you take faith leaps about a lot of things every single day. Is that chair going to hold you? Is that car that you got today going to get you to and from church? Are you going to have a meal today? You have faith in a lot of things, okay? When it comes to our faith in God, this is another leap of faith that we take, and honestly, we don't take it with like just a lack of evidence, like, oh, this is a cool fairy tale, I'll believe in that. No, we take our faith seriously because there's actually a lot of evidence to support it, but the whole definition of faith is that you can never be certain. So doubt is not the opposite of faith. You kind of have to have doubt in order to have faith, because if you had no doubt, you would have certainty, and none of us have certainty about much of anything in this life. Whether you're going to live past today, whether you're going to have all your dreams and expectations that you hope for in life, whatever it is, nothing is guaranteed in this life. But we do have our faith, and our faith is not misplaced, in my opinion. So that's why I'm here, doing what I do for a living and talking to you guys about these things. But the truth is, all of us are going to experience things in our life that challenge our faith. And some of you, maybe you've had that already. Maybe some of you are logically thinking people. You want to know the reasons why this makes sense and this fits with this reasoning, and you think through things analytically. I'm kind of like this. Excuse me, I'm going to cough. I'm going to mute my mic. So, some of you are logically minded. So you think through things and you have questions. But so what that sometimes does is that something will come up. You'll hear something that the Bible describes, and it actually it's describing historical things, real people, real events that happen. But sometimes you'll hear something from science, and your logical brain will think, well, how does that make sense? For instance, prayer, right? You can think logically about what it means to have a conversation with somebody, but when it comes to having a conversation with an abstract idea like God, which he's not an abstract idea, he's an actual person, but it's an abstract idea for us to understand this idea of prayer at times, right? And for your analytically minded person, that might be hard to grapple with and believe, right? Or some of you, maybe you've had a different experience, maybe you've had difficult things happen in your life, and that's caused you to question God, not because of anything logical or analytical, but because of simply life experience. You've had difficult things happen, and that's caused you to have some real questions about God and his existence, or that he cares and stuff like that. Or maybe you have friends or family members who believe in something different entirely. They're not Christians. They don't believe in the same God that you do. Maybe they practice another religion, and hearing what they believe makes you question what you believe. Others of you, maybe you're not sure what you think because you've not really given a whole lot of thought to any of this before. Maybe some of you are sitting and thinking like, my faith's pretty good. I don't really have any questions. So all of us are in a different place in our faith journey. All of us come with different life experiences, different things that inform our belief system thus far. And no matter what your experience has been, I can promise you that challenges are coming. Challenges will happen in life. Challenges to your faith, to your way of thinking, to what you thought was true. And that's just part of life. There's things that happen in life that cause you to challenge your belief system. And there are challenges in life. It might happen in science class. It might be because of what something someone says. It might happen because of a relationship. It might happen because of a difficult loss or a circumstance, and it might just happen randomly. But challenges happen in life. And there are challenges coming your way because that's just the nature of life. So the best thing we should do now is to prepare for those challenges before they get here so that we're not blindsided when they do. No matter what it is, there is something that's going to happen in life that we're going to need a firm foundation for. Storms come, and unless you have shelter, you will have a hard time outlasting the storm. So today we're going to look at something that John actually wrote in his gospel. If you guys remember, John was who? He was a disciple of Jesus. Yep. Not John Lawler, by the way. John, the son of Zebedee, not John the Baptist. He was one of Jesus' closest disciples. And so we're going to look at a story that happened in John chapter 9. And as it pertains to this idea of science and this question of how, check this out. Okay, so you think that, like, this is something that I thought when I was growing up too, is like, how could Jesus' disciples or people who saw Jesus perform miracles, how could they ever doubt? Have you guys ever thought that before? Like when you read the Bible and you see like either whether it's God in the Old Testament with the Israelites or Jesus in the New Testament, like he performs this miraculous sign in front of them. And I would think if I were there, I would never doubt my faith ever again. How could they doubt, right? But what's interesting is John kind of, he tracks something like this that happens where you see even the people who are present doubt. So this is in John chapter 9, starting in verse 8. So his neighbors and those who had formerly seen him, this is talking about the blind man that Jesus actually just miraculously healed. So Jesus heals the blind man. His neighbors and those who had formerly seen him begging asked, "Isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg?" Some claimed that he was. Others said, "No, he only looks like him." Right? So they're debating, is this guy who can now see and is no longer begging, is this the same blind guy that we used to see begging? And there's disagreement amongst people. But he himself insisted, "I am the man." "How then were your eyes open?" they asked. He replied, "The man they called Jesus made some mud, put it on my eyes. He told me to go to Siloam and wash, so I went and washed, and then I could see." So you see people's response to this when they're debating, is this the guy? Is this really the guy? And he's like, "No, I'm the guy. Jesus healed me." And they're like, "How?" They're asking the same question we ask today. How? It's a very reasonable question. I would be asking the same thing. How did this happen? Right? But he told them it was Jesus. I guess that answer wasn't good enough for them. Right? Because they decided to take their friend who used to be blind to a group of people called the Pharisees, who were the religious leaders of that time. And like, hey, he's saying that this guy Jesus did this, but he's not a Pharisee, he's not a religious leader. So, what do you say? So the Pharisees met with them, and they asked him about this Jesus that he's talking about. So, what have you to say about him? It was your eyes he opened. This is the Pharisees questioning him. The man replied, "He's a prophet." They still did not believe that he had been blind and had received his sight until they sent for the man's parents. "Is this your son?" they asked. "Is this the one you say was born blind? How is it that he can now see?" Right? So the people have an argument about it. He says, "No, it was Jesus." And they go, "How?" They bring him to the religious leaders, the Pharisees. He tells the same story again. And they say, "How?" And they don't believe. So they bring his parents. "Was he actually blind?" "Yes, he was blind." "How? How was he healed?" So John continues with the story. A second time, they summoned the man who had been blind. "Give glory to God by telling the truth," they said. In other words, "You a liar. Tell us how this really happened." Right? They say, "We know this man is a sinner." They're talking about Jesus. In other words, they're saying, "Why don't you give us the truth? Because you keep saying Jesus is he's the one that healed you, but we know he's a sinner." So they're trying to make him doubt his circumstance, doubt what happened to him. Jesus couldn't have possibly healed you because he's a sinner. So why don't you try again? Tell us what happened. And check out his response. He replied, whether he, referring to Jesus, whether he's a sinner or not, I don't know. One thing I do know, I was blind, but now I see. And that's so perfect for his response, because he didn't know Jesus. They're saying he's a sinner. I don't know. And frankly, he didn't care. He goes, I don't care. I don't know. All I do know is I was blind, and now I can see. So you do with that what you want, but I know what I know. I know what I saw, literally, because he saw it now. Jesus healed me. And the Pharisees' accusations of him being a sinner didn't shake his faith, because he knew what had happened to him. Right? Here's the thing. I love that, because he's saying, I don't know everything about Jesus, but yet I choose to believe. We may not always understand the how things happen, like scientifically, but we do know is who is behind all things, and that's God. And we talked about that last week, but we can have questions and still follow God. A week or two ago, I asked you guys about questions that you hear in your science class, or that you've heard that seemingly conflict between science and faith, right? We can have those questions and still follow God. We have answers to a lot of those questions. Some of those you're not going to find satisfying enough, but it's okay. We can still have questions and still follow God. We're not going to always know everything and how it all works this side of heaven. We may never know, because God is we can never understand God, because God is God and we are not, right? I always find it amusing when we're like, oh, well, I can't understand this, therefore it can't be real. And we don't stop to think, well, maybe we can't understand it because we're only human and God is God. We can't have the understanding of God because we're not God. So that's just, anyway, kind of speaks to the narcissistic arrogance that as humans we can have at times when we demand answers from God. That's beside the point. But faith comes in when we have questions and we make the choice to still believe, still follow, despite some of our unanswered questions. We can still have questions and follow God in the midst of our questions. So maybe some of you've had your faith challenged before, and you responded like this guy. Maybe you stayed confident in what you knew to be true. How could this happen to you? Maybe some of you have had something terrible happen in your life. How could this happen to you? And maybe you've had the opportunity to say, you know what? I don't know why this happened, but I know who's in charge. And that's good enough for now. And your faith sustained you through that situation. You came out stronger. Others of you, maybe you didn't have that response. Maybe you're thinking, that's great for this guy that Jesus healed him. He had that awesome experience to draw back on, but I don't have that. I don't have a foundation where I can fully put my trust in God. In fact, I feel like God's kind of betrayed me in my life. Maybe that's where you're coming from. But whatever your situation, we can still follow God while being upset. We can still follow God about it while not having all our questions answered. But we can still follow God and ask our questions. So this week, I'd encourage you to do two things. One is to keep asking questions. Again, our faith will deepen and grow as we continue to ask questions, as we continue to build upon our questions, to seek out the truth. Seek out people who can help you find those answers. Seek out a trusted a small group leader. Bring it to your parents. Ask your questions. And again, I'd be very cautious about, YouTube is a wonderful tool if you trust your sources, right? You have to be able to distinguish between people's opinions, their interpretation of data, and the facts. Sometimes people will misconstrue facts in order to build their opinion against God. And you have to be careful about that. So sometimes YouTube can be terrible because you don't know what you're going to get. Sometimes it can be great. But that's why you have to have trusted people that help you find these answers. Because, and I've seen this a lot, is students will have questions. They'll go into YouTube. You know how YouTube has that, especially if you're on a computer, but it's even on your phone. It'll have a watch next section. When you're watching a video, there's this watch next video. There's something called an algorithm that puts that there for you to keep you on the platform, to keep watching. And that can send you down all these different rabbit trails. If you're not careful, You can talk yourself out of believing anything because you just follow the internet rabbit trail. So you have you can't do this on your own. You have to do it with people. And be careful about where you're getting your information. So, ask your questions, but ask it with trusted people, with trusted adults. Okay? Test to see if what you believe is true. Secondly, take a step towards God. Don't wait until you get all the answers to move closer to God, because you'll never get there. Right? Move closer towards God first, and then you'll start to have some of your questions answered, I believe. God says that if we draw near to him, he will draw near to us. And it doesn't say if we get all our answers, then we can draw near to God and he'll reveal himself. It says that draw near to him with our questions, with our hang-ups, with our hurts, with our mistakes, and God will still draw near to us. So, take a step towards God. Take a step towards learning about God. Right? Many people, especially young people in today's culture, are very ill-informed about the Bible and about God, just because the way our culture has changed. People used to spend more time in church, more time in Sunday school, more time in small groups where they would discuss a lot of these questions. Now, people's idea of faith in God are often reduced to an hour on Sunday mornings. And that's just not enough. So spend some time taking a step towards learning more about God. Okay. As we kind of wrap up, remember that we can still have questions and follow God at the same time. Those two things can coexist together. As you get ready to go to your small group, what's one step that you can take to learn more about God? I want you to think about that question, and not only to learn more about God, because I think if we, and I kind of hinted at this a second ago, but if we just focus on learning about God, about facts, about head knowledge, there's going to come a point in time where that's not enough anymore, even for those who are analytically minded. What makes or breaks your faith, oftentimes, and this ties back to our previous series, is the people around you. It's your community. If you're around a bunch of people, and I've seen this happen countless times as well, if you're around a bunch of people that are questioning their faith, that don't really know if they believe in God anymore, and then they start, you kind of like this hive mind of like, you all start to experience the same questions at the same time, but you're not helping each other with the answers, you're just deconstructing together. Those friends will help you tear down your faith. But if you surround yourself with people who are building you up in the faith, that are still allowing you to have your questions, but are giving you room and space to process them and answer them at your own pace, you're going to come out stronger. The key to surviving difficult questions is not necessarily answers. It's having a good community of Christ-centered people around you. So, that's why small group is so important. So I'm going to shut up and let you guys get to your small groups. But what's one step you can take this week to learn more about God? Or maybe to take a step towards community? Let me pray.